Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special episode of Disabilities Redefined with Dr. Truett Wagner. I am yours truly, Dr. Truett Wagner, and we have Dr. John A. King with us. Before we begin the interview, we are going to show you a few clips of some footage he has recently done. One is a documentary, and one is an episode in which he appeared on The Doctors. So we'll be right back.
There's nothing more beautiful than a smile of a little boy or a little girl. And unfortunately, there's a group of people in our society that take great joy in destroying something beautiful.
There was one boy, they wanted him to work as a beggar, but he didn't look pitiful enough, so they cut off both his arms and then set him on the side of the road so people would feel sorry for him and give him money.
There's a man, a father, a stepfather, videoing having sex with his daughter, 5 or 6-year-old daughter, videoing on a handycam while he's penetrating her.
Second largest criminal enterprise in the world.
And they're so young, some as young as 4 years old.
It literally just makes you revolted.
Why aren't we talking about it?
It's a $32 billion a year business.
They kidnapped them, literally, and they took them by force to work in sexual exploitation.
These are small kids being told to carry out sexual acts.
I met girls who had had sexual encounters with, on average, about 20 to 25 men a night.
It's just not right to be f***ed in the ass by your father or his friends with tools.
People just don't know, and they don't want to know.
For every 10 girls they rescue, they're leaving hundreds, if not thousands, behind.
My first memory was a sex act with a female family member at 4. It seemed like it was abuse everywhere I went. Family members, their friends, I was taken to parties, I was used in those environments. It wasn't safe anywhere.
Desde los 12 años a los 16 años de edad, me tocaban más de 30 hombres al día, me pegaban todos los días, me veía yo misma como una basura, ni siquiera había una persona que te pueda ayudar. Cuando nace mi bebé, me la quitaron, estuve un mes con él y me lo quitaron. Y ahora era la amenaza de que si no hacía todo eso, pues prácticamente iban a matar al niño.
I had these invisible chains, and I started self-harming by cutting. I knew if I didn't deal with my problems, I'd probably end up dead or in jail.
9 years ago when I was 45, it all came back like an old 8mm film. My wife at the time found me in the backyard with a gun, screaming hysterically, saying that they raped me and abused me. I just wanted the pain to stop. I received a phone call from someone, out of the blue, just asking me how I was going. It made me stop and think that maybe I could still contribute something. Maybe there is hope.
Hey, John, how are you?
Good, mate. Yes. Good, thank you.
Yes, glad you're with us. So we're just going to jump right in and take it from there. I do want to start out, though, by asking, when did you, first of all, quick, are you happy you told your story?
Wow. I think that's one of those bittersweet things. I don't think anyone, I think vulnerability is courage. And I think the bravest people are the most vulnerable people, and that was a decision. Yeah, I say that in hindsight now, I suppose, looking back at the courage it took me to become vulnerable telling my story. I don't think it's ever been easy. It's certainly still not easy today. It's not easy talking to you tonight, but this is all part of a process, and I think it's part of the healing process. When you start to see that all things turn around for good, and you start to have this conversation, it starts to be a very healing thing. Well, I found anyway. So am I pleased that I told my story? It's difficult, but there's healing that's come with, with all difficulty.
You knew, if I'm understanding it correctly, you knew the time was right for you to share your story. What advice, or if I'm understanding it correctly, and if I'm not, then please, elaborate on that. But what advice do you have for other people who may be struggling with sharing their story?
I don't know if I'd say that the time was right. I just knew that I had to do it. Mm-hmm. There's a tension there. I don't think there was ever a right time to share your story. Right. I think what I realized is that I'd been limping around with scars of shame for years. And one night I was just thinking, it's like, why do they have to be scars of shame? Why can't they be medals of honor? Yeah. I survived this. I got over this. I've overcome this. I'm moving forward. And I was in a very disabled state at the time, emotionally and even intellectually. And I think that was the shift. It's like, I'm no longer going to be embarrassed about what was done to me by someone else or what happened to me. I'm going to turn this around. And I think that was the decision to share the story. And I think when people, I think everyone should be sharing their story, not because they're a victim and they don't want people to celebrate their victimhood, but because they want to celebrate with people the fact that they're moving forward, and they're even asking people to help them move forward.
Listen, you've got two very, very interesting books. I'll have to say, I'm looking a little scruffy right now myself because you sent me over the ebook and I started flipping through one page. I've got it actually right here on the iPhone. I started flipping through one page after the other, after the other, after the other. I realized, wait a minute, it's like 3:30 a.m. right now. I woke up late this morning. Yeah, and of course, over the weekend, I spent so much time looking at your videos, and I loved your videos. They were very to the point, very, very dramatic and powerful. And so I want to just ask you a few questions about all of them were my favorite, but three of which really stood out. The first one is a video called Grow or Die. And in that video, you say, I love this statement. It is such a powerful statement. You say, failure means you are trying again. Yeah. I want to repeat it because I'm going to probably bring this into my class next semester. And every presentation I give going forward, it's going to be some motto or some poster sign or something. Failure means you are trying again. Can you please elaborate on that a little bit?
So I'll tell you what, I'll make you a T-shirt and I'll send you up with that motto for next semester.
I would love it, yeah.
And if I'm up that way and you could do with a pop-in guest appearance, I'll come in and say hi with you.
I would love that as well.
Failure means that you're trying again. You watch a child stand and walk for the first time and fall over. They don't do it once and then stop. In fact, we applaud the fact that they get up and they try again and they go again. Mm-hmm. I probably like yourself, I've tried many things, done many things in my life, be it boxing or riding or playing rugby or flying an aeroplane, whatever it is, or scuba diving. You don't ever get to lesson one and you're successful at it.
Right.
Yet it comes to things like recovery, overcoming disability, overcoming mental trauma or physical trauma or military trauma. It's so many people think, well, I've tried this for a couple of years and it's not working. Well, I've tried this for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and it's just not working. It's only not working because at some point you stop trying or your language would be different. The narrative wouldn't be a victim narrative. It would be, it didn't go so well yesterday. I'm going to get up tomorrow and keep pursuing it because I'm going to believe that tomorrow will be a better day for me.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Again, a very good point. And the other video that I really did like was trauma is a place of reference, not residence. Yeah. And you actually speak of that you have to refine yourself.
Yep.
Yes. Can you please elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. I think what I noticed is that when I was dealing with people who had been through difficult things, mm-hmm. is their difficult thing had defined them, whatever it was, an inability to walk, an inability to speak, a traumatic background as a child. Their whole identity was tied up in that. And I just got to thinking one day is I don't want to be tied up in what was done to me. I want to be I want to allow it to make me a better man, make me a better person than I could have possibly ever have been before. And that when I speak to it, I often say your past will either define you or refine you. Mm-hmm. And I think people allow it to define them, and it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to define you. It can make you a better person.
Yes, I agree with that as well. And that leads up to the third video that you spoke about earlier as far as pushing through. It was a video entitled Redefining Normal. And this, of course, means redefining your normal, redefining individuality, your individual normal. But you make the statement, you have to redefine your normal in order to walk forward. And that was extremely powerful because, or what are you saying when you say you have to redefine your normal in order to walk forward?
Babe, it's right brain, is it, or left brain? Which is the analytical? So I was previously very left brain orientated.
Yes.
Goal orientated, future focused, driven, passionate. When I had the recall in 2008 and the onset of complex post-traumatic stress, literally, mate, I went from being right brain to wanting to sit under a tree, smoke a cigar, and write poetry. And it's like, that's a pretty big swing for me. And then I kept on trying to fight that. And yet all I wanted to do was process and write and write and write. And, for the life of me, I couldn't stick to a daily agenda, let alone a 2 to 3 year plan. And the things that I used to be interested in, I just was no longer interested in. My sleep pattern had changed, my desires, my wants. And I spent so much time and energy trying to go back to John 1.0 when John 2.0 was calling me forward. I just said, you know what? Who gets to decide what normal is? Because, see, it's normal to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night and it's normal to get up at 6 o'clock at night. But for me, that wasn't normal for me, because if I didn't get up at 3 a.m., then the nightmares would kick in and I'd have hallucinations all day. So I used to set my alarm for 2:45. And I felt condemned by that because I wasn't fitting into what everyone else would call normal. And one day I thought, well, screw it. Who said that that's not normal? Mm-hmm. And so I literally wrote a list of things down. And I said, okay, what's normal for me? It's normal for me to go to the gym. Not because I'm trying to handle my endorphins and get them, because I like it. It's normal for me not to eat sugar. Why? Because it makes me feel better. Mm-hmm. It's normal for me to get up at 2:45. Why? Because I'm creative and I like to write. So I came up with a list of what was seen as disabilities, say, or obstacles or non-norms, and I redefined them as normal for myself. So by the end of it, my second list, John 2.0, was a list of things I could live with because I was doing them every day. They were my new normal.
And that brings me to another question in this wonderful book you've written. I believe it is page 46 or 47, when you speak about resilience, that you never saw yourself as a victim, but you wanted to claim the position of being a resilient. The resilience factor was very important to you. Can you touch on that for a second?
Yeah, I think in the poetry book that I wrote early on, No Working Title,
yes,
I say many things: imperfect, a work in progress, a man trying to own his crap, but I've never been a victim, be it of sexual abuse or anything else. And then the last line in this particular piece of poetry says, a victim has already lost their battle. I've just begun to fight.
Yes.
I think that is the whole essence of it. If you allow yourself to engage in the victim narrative, you're talking about how the world has done you wrong. Whereas an overcomer, a fighter, a recoverer is just being resilient. They're just going to get up and go one more time. Get up. And it's my old boxing coach, actually. In some of the worst and the darkest times, I used to drag myself to the boxing gym. And the coach would say, John, you just got to, when you're on the ropes, you just got to tuck your chin and throw punches. Mm-hmm. And that was probably, that single piece of advice probably got me through my darkest hours and meant that I didn't commit suicide when others suggested I should. Mm-hmm. When I felt I had no hope and no one believed me would ever love me again because others told me that was the case. That I would never be able to make an income, that I'd never be able to speak without a stutter. It was just, I can do one thing today, and that's tuck my chin and throw punches.
Yes, great. Thank you. And we're winding it up, but I do want to speak about Chapter 7 and deal with it. And you give these chapters these colorful titles: happiness, unicorns, and other myths. You speak about happiness, something that we all want to experience and all want to have. You speak about happiness as far as you break it down into principles, and I just want to talk about the first two principles. Sure. Principle 1: we live from the outside in, and I love this. Principle 2. A little pun on words here because I had to read it a few times. We are unhappy because we are told that life isn't messy. Yeah. And again, I actually had to read over that a few times because we are unhappy because we are told that life isn't messy. And I kind of thought, you know what? I think if somebody was more realistic with us, we might not be so unhappy all the time and put up these little myths and unicorns and fairy tale lives. But can you just elaborate a little bit on Principle 1 and Principle 2? And I'm sure anybody watching this interview is going to quickly go buy the book because it is one very, very powerful book. And it's a great read as well. But I do want you to just speak about Principle 1 and Principle 2 for a few minutes.
Living from the outside in as opposed to the inside out. We grow up and we're told to do this, believe this, that if we acquire this, if we achieve this, if we go to this college, then those things are going to make us happy. We don't ever take the time to ask ourselves the question, well, what is it I want to do with my life? What is it I feel? What brings me joy? What gets me in my sweet spot? Those things aren't taught through academia, through school, and mostly through life. And we stumble into these phases where by 20 we've got our debt and our college behind us. In our 30s we're in a serious relationship and a marriage. 40 we've got kids and we're frustrated and bored because we really didn't want to be an engineer. We wanted to be a rock star, but Mum told me we had to be an engineer. And we've lived from this external pressure. And I think that's the challenge, is that even in the whole recovery process, is people take their cues from external instead of what makes it comfortable for them. And, a quick story, and I won't try and, take too long. I remember waking up when I was 13. I went to a dentist, and the dentist I had was a sadist. And he pulled teeth out of little boys without anesthetic, and I woke up and I had semen on my shirt. And he was an older gentleman. And I find it a challenge going to the dentist, not because, I've got a problem with the dentist, but because I don't want to be, knocked out and sexually abused. And I had to go to my dentist. And I was in fear and trepidation of going in there because I'd have to shut up and just put up with it because that's what normal happens. And from the outside pressure in, you're supposed to trust it. But the first thing I did was walk into the dentist and say, hi, my name's John. When I was 13, my dentist was a sadist. He pulled my teeth out and then ejaculated on my chest. So I have a problem being here today. And the guy was in shock, mate. I'm telling you, he was like, wow.
Yeah.
But for me, that was living from the inside out. It's like, hey, listen, I'm going to have to talk to you about something because this is a challenge. Now, if I bottle this up from the outside in based on social norms, none of us are going to be happy in this occurrence. And I think all of life is lived based upon the expectations and pressures from the outside. And that brings it to point number 2. Life is messy, mate. There's this phrase, do you have a plan B? Dude, we're only ever living bloody plan B because plan bloody A never works out.
Right.
So this whole crap about how you've got to have a plan B, it's like, put plan A aside, it ain't going to happen. You are living plan. If you're on plan B, you're doing really well because I'm like on a plan like Z to the 3rd at the moment. I never thought I'd be here. I never bloody well think that I'd be doing this, but this is where I am. And Plan Z is okay. Plan Z is okay because it fits really well with who I am, and I like me. I've come to really like who I am.
Yes, that's a very good point. And you know what? I'm living plan Z, X, whatever it is. My first plan didn't work out, but you know what? It didn't work out for the better, and I just had, I cherish every day I've got in this line of work that I have. And I love it. So I too believe life is a little messy and not everything works out. And sometimes we think it's a hardship, but it really isn't. It's always for the better. Well, what are you doing now? What is going on now in your life?
There's two things we focus on. We work in the area of anti-human trafficking. And we spend a lot of time bringing to attention the fact that over 50% of those people trafficked worldwide are boys and men. And because when I was a little boy, no one wanted to believe that a mother could do that to a son. Mm-hmm. And even as an adult, when I had recall, I couldn't find any help, and there was zero resources. Out of all the resources put aside for dealing with sexual abuse and human trafficking in the United States, about 5% of them are allocated to boys and men. Yeah. And the numbers are just not the case. Yeah, 55% of all sex workers, the human traffic victims in New York City are male. Mm-hmm. So we've got some misnomers there. So we try and help. We help everybody, but we really try and have a conversation that it's a human rights issue, not a gender rights issue. The second thing is we do a lot of work with post-traumatic stress disorder recovery, coaching people, having honest conversations like you're great at having, and trying to help people see that they will make it. Really is we are bringers of hope. We're best we can to people.
Okay. Well, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. And what can I say? But you're doing a great job. I really did enjoy the book. Do you have any other future books coming out? Any other future writing? Any other documentaries? Anything you'd like to talk about before we go?
Yeah, we have another documentary. I'm in another documentary this year on post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm releasing another book of poetry called From Me to You, which is actually a collection of poems. The first book was a collection of poems during recovery, during the initial stages of it. This is a collection of poems about life, love, and all things of that nature. And then we've got two more books in the work. They're untitled. One will be on the whole body, soul, and spirit aspect of recovery, because we have a tendency to silo those aspects. And the body's a system, and if we don't understand everything from the role of heavy metals to the endocrine system to our diet and the impact of preservatives and food colouring and how all those things affect someone, then we're missing out. And then the third one will be actually a very practical how to do that sort of stuff, how to apply that stuff to your life. So, yeah, that's the next 3 years, mate, unless, I get bored and just want to go smoke cigars and sit on the beach.
Well, you're in the gym. Now, you also were at one time a professional bodybuilder, was it? What was you competed for? You were a professional. You were, right? Is it wrestler, bodybuilder?
I wasn't professional. I qualified for, the Masters over 50. Qualified for the over 50 Masters competition, but the following year I ripped, the second bicep and broke an ankle and dislocated a hip, and so I'm just starting to get back into it. I'd like to compete next year if I could one more time.
Oh, that would be great. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say before we go? It has been a very good experience. I've been in a good mood all day just to talk to you. So thank you very much. Now, is your wife nearby? I enjoyed her writing as well. Does she want to say hello to us? Hello. She's beautiful.
Yeah, she is. And I love her book. I love the parts she puts in the book. We've had so much feedback about the impact of her reflections on the role of partnering together in recovery and the power of a partner. It's been wonderful to get that aspect of the story out, because not a lot of those things are shared,
Well, that was actually something that I did enjoy for the people out there, and we'll obviously promote your videos and YouTube channel and the whole 9 yards, but you also list and feature testimonials, which is a very good thing. I actually learned quite a good bit, and quite a few of them actually spoke about your wife. So she's much appreciated as well. So thank you very much.
Well, it is. I couldn't do it without her, mate. I mentioned this in the book. There were 2 occasions Melissa felt to call me, and she talked me off both barrel and bottle. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her being obedient to an unction, and it's still like that. She definitely is my true north. Right. If I get rattled, which happens daily, sometimes hourly, she helps. I trust her. I trust her implicitly. Right. She helps guide me home.
Well, I can't thank you two enough, and let's keep in touch. And if you are ever in New York City, please come by. You'd be welcome into the studio anytime.
All right, mate. We'll take you up on that. And let me know when you want me to come and trash talk you in a class at the university or something.
I would love that. Actually, I'm going to see if we can't maybe do something via Skype, because that would be
awesome. That'd be awesome. And I'll send you up a T-shirt so we can do the whole twin thing. Only our mothers can tell us apart. Our accents and our hair are identical.
Well, I don't have any hair, and my accent is actually a distorted British Southern thing going on here.
Hey, man. Tell you what, I'll send you an afro and you send me a bald wig, and we'll really quick.
We'll do it. Okay. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Take care.